It's been a while, man.
It's been a while, brother. How are you today?
Good. A little
Yeah.
tired. Yeah, a little tired.
All right,
Well,
man. So I'm excited to talk to you tonight because you are one of the few people that whose Facebook pictures I enjoy, and I wonder if it's because it's so similar to me, right? I think
mhm.
that I seem to see these similarities, but and I think in the conversation we're going to see if we are as similar as I think that we are. And and let me also preface before we get started. I got to tell you, it's really hard for people to open up during these conversations, to
Mm.
truly open up because people were listening. You don't want to be judged. You kind of like you're saying things about your immediate family. You don't know how they're going to feel about. So basically say as much as you can without getting yourself into any trouble with the wife or the kids.
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's two immediate questions. How many children? Where do you live?
I have two boys. I live in Astoria, Queens. I've been here since 1998 to 7-ish, 8. Um, I grew up in the Catskill Mountains. Exactly, the name of the town is South Fallsburg, but it's very small. So the outskirts of what South Fallsburg is Monticello, which is a much bigger town than ours, and you can probably see them on the 4 o'clock news. I'm sorry, the 11 o'clock news on Channel 4, or when they do the weather. It's the
Yeah,
one that's all the way up to the top left.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, man.
So how old are your kids?
One is just turned 17, and
Yeah.
the other one is 15.
All right. So a 15 and a 17-year-old boy. Let's go back to before they were born. Why did you make the decision to have children?
I did. Yes, I did. I made a decision because I met somebody, like my wife, and you know, we knew that we were in love and we're Brazilian, and so we just, decided to have a child and we planned it. And Felipe came literally right after it. So they're 14 months apart, and the good thing about having kids when at a very close age is that they can be their friends. That's what I kind of learned if you get them right back to back, they can play together and have kind of almost the same friends and stuff.
What I'm asking you to do is to reflect upon what is versus what either expectations or ideals, right? Either
Mhm.
from before. So it's the same question as before. What did you think it might become? What is it now? Is it anything like you imagine? Or here's the danger, and this is what I think I'm beginning to notice a lot. We have no expectations, no idea what it's going to look like, right? So I may be putting you
Mhm.
in a difficult position because I think that maybe we meet a girl, we love this girl, she loves us, we're like stoked, we want to be with her forever, and then it's like the next thing that we should do is have kids, but we don't really have any expectations. We have no idea what this is going to look like. We are not thinking about the future. um but I'll start this off. uh I I mean, I really didn't think about it. I didn't think about the biggest thing the silliest thing in terms of expectations that were completely not met was that the only book that I read about children about children when my wife was pregnant was a book that basically it was a book like the book would really teach you about toddlers,
Mm.
but but once your baby's born, is we're talking years, what feels like decades. That the
Right.
baby is just a baby, like never. There's not gonna be any right. Like I remember thinking, I can't wait till to teach him how to ride a bicycle. But that took years. I mean, it's like 5 years. I mean, he was on a
Mhm.
tricycle before and all that, but right. So this is what I'm trying to get to. Like so many of us really, we don't even know what we're getting ourselves into. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, I believe that. I think it's also, I think it's like almost like um it's like living that dream, where you just want to build something, leave something behind. I know that not everybody has that point of view, um, but I think it's important that, if you meet somebody, they're going to, or they're not, they want to have kids. But I met one that she wanted kids, and so did I, and yeah, but again, it was it's a very different time. I want to say that um, they have a lot more than what I guess I had growing up, when they, like options, living in the city. But it is very different for me, because the reason why I keep going about them is we planned to have them, but not in the way that it happened.
Mm,
It's you say, like, yeah, like going back to what you're saying. Yeah, I want to be with this person. I want to have kids. I want to just do something, start this. But at the same time, you go after it, and you want to take it on because you want to leave something behind. You want to, create a foundation, and then you just try your real best as you possibly can do with the circumstances and things that come up. But in all, it's about creating a family, and
mm.
teaching them to be better than you, and teaching them to be you know
How do you teach them to be better than you?
um I think it's hard work. I think it's um they see the education, and the perseverance, how who you walk around with. um you know I always tell them, if you want to fly like the eagles, you got to stop hanging out with turkeys.
Mm.
um
So, but you're saying that because you hung out with turkeys.
a lot of turkeys, and all buzzards, turkeys.
Here's what I want everybody to know. The reason I asked you to have this conversation with me, because I see you're grilling right on the fire escape for your boys. You're taking them fishing all the time. You're hanging out
Mhm.
with them. I mean, I see a lot of good pictures. So, like, is this just a beautiful Facebook live, or are you a good dad, the good dad that you look
Oh
like?
yeah, I try my, yeah, of course. I feel that I am. I mean, you would have to ask them. I work a lot. I try to guide them in the right direction. I watch who they're hanging out with. I mean,
When you say you try to guide them, what do you do to guide them?
what I do is I tell them that they must value the things that they have,
Mm,
not in material, but in, like, um, being grateful for living in a nice neighborhood, having different friends, not having anxiety, not living uh, in a situation where you don't have as much. Know that there's always food on the table, and then to value family, to value education. Especially, I grilled them all the time about education. That's the one thing I'm after them, like, all the time, because um, what I want for them is them to be happy, and sometimes I believe happiness comes as a balance. Um, and I think if you teach them unity, family, very important, like, valuing your mother's word, being a hard worker, understand that you can be privileged to certain things, but you still have to work as hard as anybody else to make sure that you get people's trust, and um, you get things in life because you worked for it, and not just because it was given to you. And I believe they listen. I think they listen. You know, my son is applying to colleges right now. He's going to, he applied for a few of them. I don't want to say them exact, but because I want him to get whatever he wants, so I don't want to kind of jinx it or anything. But he has a great point average. Um, You know, he has loves to play basketball, and what I try to teach them is that they need to work hard and be humble and know what they have, but try to always do the right thing, always, and try to lead when, you know, if you see something's not right, you know, make sure you surround yourself with people that you trust. And I think they listen because I love all their friends. You know, they're like Queens boys and so forth. But what I want them to do is just be good men and try their best, whatever they do.
Yeah. So let's go back to that question about what advice would you have given yourself. And I think that one way to answer that question might come out of regrets. It might be easier for you to remember certain regrets, right? Because that's how I think of it, right? So I think that does anything come to mind when you think, oh man, I here's what I would have told myself. What
Um,
about like anger issues? Like, I come
no,
across so many guys who are like just like, and so many books or so many stories about dads that are just like, they would just fly off the handle like over the silliest thing.
no,
Just
oh no, not me. I spoiled my kids rotten. I mean, for me growing up, my dad was pretty cool too. You know, I mean, cool in the sense where he had his own ways. You know, I was not like my dad, but you know, he gave you freedom to be who you wanted to. So I think I get that from my dad. Um, and my mom was always a hard worker. You know, so I think I tried to instill in them what I learned.
mhm.
And then my wife, of course, she's the backbone. I'm a dad where I try to intervene and so forth. And of course, when boys, you have two boys as well. You know, they come to you sometimes. Now they're at a point that they're dating and they have chicks like that. So, but if I can go back and say something, I would say, Rodrigo, you have no idea what's coming.
Yeah, really?
I would say that. But
When did you realize that? Like earlier on, or are you talking about now in their teens?
now,
Oh,
now, oh, when they're little and you can control them and hug them, and I like my kids. I hug my kids all the time. Especially at a certain age, because um, I had great insurance, so my wife would go everywhere with the kids, and they would tell us what to do, and I would hug them and kiss them all the time, and it really did help them be very strong-minded guys and have their own opinions, which I think is important. You know,
hmm.
they don't just sway because you're gonna have friends. I imagine them like myself, but a little different because in Queens, I grew up in a diverse neighborhood upstate, but in Queens it's much more diverse. So you can have like a posse full of 15 guys that are each from one country, which really it's kind of what they they are when they hang out with themselves. They got a bunch of friends. Um, but yeah, but going back, I would say that the teenage point of view is a lot different than when you have your kids, where they're pure and it's a very important time in their life where you guide them. My wife was there, of course. The deal that I made with her is she was there, all the time. Um, that was the deal I made with her is, if we're going to do this, then let me work, and I want you to take care of them until they reach a certain age, and then you can do, if you want to go back to work. And that's what she's pretty much doing now. She does things on the side now because they're older and everything. But we did definitely living in Queens. Oh my God, in Queens, there's so much craziness out here in New York City that you have to keep your eye on them, because if you don't, that's not good. That's not good. But again, um, definitely a different aspect. When they're little, they're sweet. When they get older, they just turn into the individual selves, and sometimes you have to be ready for that. Especially when they're hanging out with friends. And I think, like every other adult now, when you see your children, it really is kind of a reflection of you. Um, because if you raise them like you kind of were raised with, respect and things like that, they're going to be, social. And when social atmospheres, things happen. And so as a parent, you really have to really look at things differently, you know? So that's what I mean. I think it's a two phase, a period where before they're teens, where it's sweet, innocent, really growing up and trying to figure out who they are. And then when you get to a point that they figure out who they are and what their circles are going to be, you gotta, it's yours. You gotta guide it in the way you can. Yeah.
Did you ever think, as they were growing up, that the way that you treated your wife would in some way influence um, how they saw the world? Did you ever think that?
Yes, I did. I did because one thing that I learned is that if your kids see that you're with one, like a mate, like a woman, or that you're trying to build a family. I think children are observant, and they try to reflect on what their surroundings are, if it's comfortable and if they relate to it. I think you know. So I believe that I think it's like when like me and my wife, when we're together, I think that shows them that I respect her, and I think that's good for them. I think that was a question, right?
You need a shot of espresso or something, brother.
You don't give me. I'm gonna get one right now. I really do have one. I think that me and my dad were very different. I think that his perspectives, which are not too far from my own, but I do think that his beliefs were different in a sense where he loved to live life differently than I do, and I think that with that, people make decisions, and my parents, they didn't stay together for a long time, but that didn't mean that my dad was not in my life. I know, anytime that I ever asked him for anything, or he anything, whatever it was, he would always go out of his way and make sure, you know, that he tried his best and things like that. But I'm just not like my dad.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's interesting. So that he tried his best. How would you know that? How would you know that he tried his best?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
All right. Fair
Yeah.
enough. So then, so what I'm saying here is that if you are completely different than your dad for no reason at all, so what do you attribute you being a good dad?
It's my mother.
That's incredible. So do
Yeah.
you think that your sons are going to say the same thing about you?
Well, I hope not. I don't know. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they see me as a cool dad, because my dad was very cool. That's the one thing about my dad. I could have done the craziest things. My dad would be like, "Oh man," he'd be like my backup, like, "Dad, oh, they're coming after me." He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get somebody. We'll get guns." My dad was just like the coolest person. Everybody wanted to hang out with my dad. You know, but I think that he just had a different mindset of life in life, and which wasn't bad. It was just his own. And I think that's what I've learned throughout the years. I think this also has to do with time. I think when you're young, um, you try to identify with your parents, but then after a while, man, you realize that everybody's different. And I didn't relate to my dad. My brother did. My brother related to my dad very well,
Hmm.
um, but I didn't. So
Yeah, so as you know, this conversation is entirely about fatherhood, right? And it's entirely about, you know, helping, giving helping other dads with a conversation that isn't being had, that they're not having really, because it appears that collectively not coming together to talk about fatherhood, right? What it means to us, what it means to our children, what it means
Hmm.
to our wives, and not just what it means to our children now, and when they're 5 years old or 15, but what it means to them as adult men or
Hmm.
women,
Hmm.
right? So I think that so um so you're saying that you really, you know how did how did you know what to do as a father, if it wasn't because you didn't learn it from your
That's a
dad?
funny thing. That's a good question. I did learn it from my dad, but I think I learned it also collectively through my uncles. Um, yeah, it was through my uncles, really. I had like a handful of uncles that were always very cool, and um, it was almost like a clan. I can't explain, how that is. Like a pack, when I was in Brazil. When I grew up upstate, and then I went to Brazil after so many years when I was like 12 years old. And I had no idea, how nice my family lived in Brazil because I kind of grew up in like the hood, sort of. It was a hood. It was a hood with trees. It was like the Bronx with trees, outskirts of Monticello and Fallsburg, depending on where you went. It was like the Bronx with trees, I want to say. A lot of trees. Um, so when I went to Brazil and I met my uncles and my mom's family, my dad's family, and you just realize where you come from and what you relate to. And so I think my uncles, like especially my uncles, Durandis, he was my aunt's husband, but he was like he was my blood, really. My cousins, my tio Elio, my tio Ismenia, my tia Edna, my tia Laide, who she's 81. No, no, she's 87, I think. 87. She's still got her knock, her brain still sharp, sharp as a knife. She remembers everything. And my uncle Juran, this is not, he's passed, and my Chuelio. But I think, and my uncle Tato, um, they were very influential as well, including my dad. Because I think what it was for me, it was like a range. I learned something from each of them, and they were real men. And my uncle Nene was like the tough guy. He works for Federal Bureau in Brazil, and he was always so soft spoken to himself, big guy. He had the fat. I have a fat gene in my family. We're all different sizes and shapes. And my uncle Nene, he's a big dude, and he's like, it's different. They all have their own differences, and I think that's what, I guess, going back to your question, because I went in a circle, but I think I learned from them how to be a father and then like be a husband, because they're all married. They've been married with the same woman their whole lives, and I think that's what I wanted, and um, I pursued that and kind of show that to them. Try to get them to see my point of view. Not that they would or they want to, but I could see them relating to it, and I hope they do. I mean, that's what the best I can do.
Earlier, you out of the blue mentioned that you hug your kids. What made you think of saying that?
Well, because I believe it's really important for you to hug your children a lot when they're little. My mom always hugged the shit out of me. I mean, she would hug me until I farted. But and I think it was very important also because I don't think I ever felt like I don't know. I always felt there was a lot of love. Especially when I went to Brazil. My God, it was
It,
so much.
did your dad hug you?
Oh yeah,
All
yeah,
right. So your dad hugged you. You hug your kids.
I do, I do.
So there's a similarity.
Yes, yes, yes. There is. I think that my dad was more of that. I think I got that thing where when they were little, I hugged them all the time. Now they're big guys, they're teenagers, they got posses and stuff. Now they do a handshake. Yo, dad, what's up, dad?
All right. So that's, yeah, they've evolved. It's changed a little bit for them.
Oh yeah, completely.
But just, I mean, like even though they do the, the gang hug, do you still hug them anyway? Like in
Oh, of
private, in
course.
private, you don't, none of that stuff. It's just full bear hug.
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, in private, I mean, it's like sit on the couch, we hug each other. You know, I kiss them on the top of their heads. You know, that's what I do. Uh, you know, because they're men. They, you know, like
Yeah,
they're big guys already.
yeah.
You know, and yeah, you know.
How do you decide what to do with them? How to spend time with them?
Oh, because I've instilled fishing in their lives since they were toddlers. Fishing, and they caught big fish since they were little. So they're deep sea fishermen. They've been deep sea fishing tuna, shark, stripes, and everything you could think. Wrecks. We went 56 miles off the coast, and we went to, what I did was, ever since they were little, I went and I gauged their fishing skills all the way up to now. But I think fishing is like, how can I say? It shows the hunter part of the human, where you don't have to kill like deers. And I don't want to, I'm not a big hunter. I grew up in the Catskills. A lot of my friends hunted.
Hmm.
Fish, I don't know why. I just didn't feel so sorry for fish, and I kind of, I mean, I feel sorry for fish. I don't. I only bring in what I eat, and I eat everything I catch. I eat everything I catch, or I give it away. And everybody eats it. You know what I mean? No matter what it is.
Yeah. So
So
this
I'm the hunter gatherer.
this is an interesting idea. You was it was it after they were born or before that you had this idea that you were going to teach him how to fish?
It was after.
It was after. Yeah. Yeah. I have the same feeling. There were I knew that I wanted to do everything I possibly could with them. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's as they started getting older. I'll give you an example. There are certain things that I've waited for that there are some things that I didn't think about before, but have become very clear. Um, so they're 12 and 13 now. Just so one of the things that I enjoyed doing in my teens was and I didn't do it much, but was rock climbing.
Mm.
I love, like top rope, where it's not like, freestyle nonsense. No, man, I'm on a rope. I want to climb this on my own, but with the safety of the rope, so I don't kill myself if I fall off, because
Right.
that wasn't my thing. And
Right.
I always in it, but I love the idea. I love, like the idea. I'm fascinated by rock climbing. Is like it's like a super dope, right? For me, it's like the thing. It's just something special and maybe manly about it. And so what I did, like you with the fishing, right? Because I want to get further into your head about the fishing. So I'm going to go ahead and expand on this one. I Whenever I took him to Central Park often when they were
Mhm.
kids, I really I enjoy Central Park very much because it's got
Mhm.
so much. You just,
Yeah.
bicycles, skateboarding,
Boating.
just running around, and it's got and lots of rocks. And when they're toddlers, perfect rocks for them to climb around.
Mhm.
Okay. So I took them to Central Park often because they gravitated towards the rocks. For me, that was a big deal. I'm like, oh man, these guys are going after the rocks, right? That was cool. So, you know, so we did that for years. Like wherever we were, it was like, hey, here's a thing to climb, and I would be like, hey, climb that, right? And I climb it first, maybe, or whatever, and then eventually, like the three of us are, have wherever we go, if there's something to climb on top of, we're gonna do it, right? And so recently, I found out that just half an hour north of here, there's like an amazing mountain, it's all rock, all kinds of different. I mean, endless opportunities for different kinds of climbing. And so I'm like, hey guys, let's go, right? Let's go check them out. I want you to see this is what we've been working towards. That was like, I was clear about that in my mind. I was clear, and I was like, I really hope they love it, because it would make me so happy to be able to learn it with them, because I don't know it well, but I know I would love to, like, to spend that time with them on the rocks. So we went to the rocks on Sunday. You know, they were climbing around. It was perfect. Nobody was afraid of anything. Everyone was enjoying themselves. Nobody was too crazy, you know, where it's like, oh my God, I don't want to take this kid, you know, because he's gonna kill himself. So it
Right.
was like it was great. And then you know, we're scheduled for a you know, for an intro to rock climbing at a gym tomorrow night, so
Cool.
that we can take that to, you know, so now we can really take ourselves to the next level. We go back to the rocks on our own with our own equipment and make that
Hmm.
happen.
That's
So
nice.
so that's how I think of being a dad. I think that's what I think being a dad is. Like
Hmm.
looking at my kids and being like, I wonder what this guy's gonna like. But when I'm not noticing what he's gonna be like, right? When I'm not noticing, you know, qualities or ideas of their own,
Hmm.
I'm injecting them, right?
Hmm.
I'm saying, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Right?
Hmm.
So anyway, back to the fishing thing. At some age, you decide, well, you know what? I'm going to take my boys fishing. Well, how old were they?
4.
Yeah. First fishing pole.
Wow. You're good, man. You're coming up with these ones. Like I think it was Spider-Man
Yeah.
and
That's right. That's
or
right.
like
The first fishing pole was Spider-Man. Sure. Yeah.
like Spider-Man or like Batman or
Yeah.
and you didn't expect them to catch anything, but when I would go fishing with them, they would see me catch fish. They're like, "Oh, daddy," and they would grab it. Oh, they'd be scared. And I think it was that, like you said, it was the experience that you tried to instill in them, and also you see it happening. You see it happening where this mind is absorbing what you're teaching it. So it's really important. And when you realize that, it's funny you say that, because then when you realize, like, oh my God, I have to be extremely careful because they absorb it so much, to a point where I think I said it in the beginning. You have to be careful. If, like, one thing I've learned out of everything so far is that they listen more than you think they do as they're growing. In other words, young teens, before they're teens, that point they're like absorbent. They're like a sponge. Everything that they see around them and how they see things, and um, you know, I truly believe that because I was so lucky that I was able to have them live in a neighborhood where, very diverse, very safe. They would have graffiti all over the place, and you'd be like, "Oh, this is the hood." I'm like, "This is no hood. This is like little rich kids that they want to spray. They want to listen to, uh, you know, a hip hop." But again, Astoria, I want to say where they lived in Astoria, which is like the Ditmars area. It was a really nice area, Greek, very Greek neighborhood too. Um, so, you know, I guess I think I did it well so that they were able to grow safe, and it I think it didn't, nothing's tarnished, but it's just a different time. It's a different time, and you have to just be open to the times, I think.
So, you know, tell me more about the fishing. Did you enjoy your time with them? Did you
Oh
teach them
yeah.
anything?
Oh
Why,
my
you know,
God.
did you bring the bucket so you can hold the
Oh
fish in the
yeah. Oh
bucket so
my
they can play with
God.
it?
We opened up when I started fishing with them, I used to go upstate in where I lived, upstate. I took them to Morningside a few times. Those areas, there's fish everywhere, small, big, whatever. And for them, it's just catching fish. And so what I taught them is, like, you catch this size fish, and you get a bigger fish, and you get a bigger fish, and you get a bigger fish, and you get bigger. And then, once you get the bigger fish, what else is there? And they keep going. I think it's also teaches them about how, to not necessarily to win, but how to work for something. I always say hunter gatherer in that sense because I think it's kind of like the foundation of, you know, I don't know. Is it the foundation somehow of like how you want to feed your family, teach your kids to survive, and
Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
man. I mean, if that's your idea, if that's how you think that this whole thing works, then that's what you're doing, right? So that's how you're being dad, right? So this is an interesting part, right? I'm trying to understand some of the things that you're saying. But
a lot. I know.
I
It's a
think
lot.
that what you seem to be saying is that these are the ideas that make you dad as you are. I think that it's fair to say, and of course, look, you're on the spot because I'm curious about your fatherhood. So it's almost like an interview, but it really is a conversation. I'm dying to hear. It's a conversation in that I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know, but I think it's it's easy to see that a lot of us are not looking at this at fatherhood as a thing, like a very specific thing that
Mm.
we do, but rather as a part of a bigger picture. It's like first
Yeah.
and foremost, I'm a man, and I got a job, and I got a career, and I got my wife, and then I'm also a dad, right? But in the back, but like working in the back of your mind, perhaps is but I'm in, I'm in Queens and I'm here for a reason and this makes sense. And as I look around and I see the graffiti and this is cool, this may like my kid's gonna walk past the graffiti and they're gonna like it and they're gonna see the art in it, right? It sounds like you're saying some of those things. Like you know that you're excited, you like I think that you seem to be saying that things are working out for you, right? Like you feel happy with the neighborhood you're in, you're happy with the way things are turning out with their friends. And it's not that, maybe it's not that you made the conscious decision to do every single one of those items, but you made the big decisions that seem to be panning out, right?
Hmm.
You're like you're going
Yes.
with the flow, and the flow seems to be working for
Yes.
you.
Yes. You're right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, you said it 100%. Because there's no manual to this. There isn't. I think that what you're doing is very important too. You know, I think um, what you're doing here, what we're talking about, is really important because sometimes people do have differences, but I think it's a collective, and if you get that collective, even if you're going into this and not knowing what you're doing, it's good to really find outlets where you can kind of share your experiences. And I think for me, I've never, very rarely did I ever talk about my experiences with my children, but at the same time, I think it's kind of a personal thing for me as well. But I think it's important that, like you were saying, to share those experiences if you're trying your best, really, and what's working for you, right? I mean, I can tell you that so far so good, knock on wood. But like I said, once you're a parent, especially with girls, I think I don't know. I don't have girls, so I don't want to say too much. But guys, boys, I think are different than girls. I think boys are different in a sense where they just think differently.
I don't have girls either, man. So without that point of view, it's going to be a lot of like us two guessing, like
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
dark.
yeah,
So let's not
oh,
even go there.
yeah, yeah.
But you could, you don't have to try to compare them. I mean, you could just like you could be amazed by the way that your boys think without having a point with which to compare.
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
no, right, because ultimately maybe the way that the comparison is really your thinking and what you believe that you understand about the world and what you believe that it is that they're thinking, and that's just good enough for comparison. What are some of the wacky things that you think that your boys think about the world or themselves that what that made you think about that?
That's a really good question, man. That's a really good one.
It's okay if look, you don't know.
I'm
So
trying
yeah.
because you know what it is so funny is I think wacky to them is stream culture. I call it stream culture, really. It's a different thing now. Stream culture, pop culture. I think pop culture lasts longer. Stream culture just can be a thing right now and then end in like I don't know, 6 months to a year. So stream culture is something that they're in. They've been hooked on a cell phone for ages, and it's part of their life. There's nothing you and I can do about that. Even if you take it out of their hands for months at a time, guess what? They're gonna go right back to it. You know, it's just part of their surroundings, and that's something that you know. Uh, I just hope that they kind of learn the difference, between reality and what's not reality, because we don't know where it's gonna go. Um,
You talk about your dad growing up in a different world, right? You talk about your dad being, coming from a very different place than you, right? And I think that it's fair to say that, your boys, our boys are going to look at us and they're going to say, dad came from a different place.
hmm
Because like you said, especially with technology, the difference now is that um our boys have, they've amassed tens of thousands of hours of videos and gaming hours, to the extent that you and me cannot imagine the world that in which they exist, right? Because perception is reality. Their perception, we cannot understand it. This is one of the biggest differences between us and the previous generation of dads, is that I think a lot of us now in 2020 dads in our 40s are able to recognize how different our kids' world is. And I think it's not because we're better than our parents. I think it's because the contrast is so great. Okay. Meaning it all came about via technology, right?
mhm.
So when
Yes.
you and I were in our early 20s, the first phones started. We did the pager thing, right? The beeper, and then very soon,
Beepers.
we got the phones,
We
and
got the
then we
big
got
Nokias,
our first email accounts in our mid 20s.
AOL,
Yeah,
AOL.
but by the time these guys arrived, the technology had already jumped. So
It's part of
so
their life.
right. So these thousands of hours that they've amassed, that they have in their brains, have completely shifted the way that they think of the entire world compared to us. We must look like dinosaurs. I mean, way beyond anything that we can imagine that our fathers were.
Mhm.
I mean, really, we can identify easier. This is an idea that I believe that you and I can identify easier with our fathers, no matter
Mhm.
what they did, good or bad, than our children. I really do think that our children are going to have a very difficult time understanding who we were, because we just didn't have the kind of exposure that they have today.
Mhm.
These guys are exposed. They have the entire they have the universe,
Mhm.
the like everything that ever has been exists at their at their fingertips.
Mhm.
They must be so completely different than us. I mean, it is remarkable, and this is why it's so important to be a good dad, and a dad that's engaged, especially today. If you're not engaged with your son today, you will have lost them to the future,
Mhm.
right? You will have
Mhm.
lost
Yeah.
your child to the future, because you cannot connect to somebody who's so uniquely different than you. I mean, the thing that you and I will have with our children is that they will always remember how we made their childhoods freaking awesome,
Mhm.
but they will always look at us as like just strange beings from another world dimension.
You
I'm
know,
telling you, yeah.
it's funny you say that because um, it always goes back to your grandparents. For me, at least, like um, I never knew my grandfathers because they died before I met them. Well, I know I met my dad's dad, but I was little, so I don't remember much. But what I see is that grandparents are really important. I think for my kids when they met my dad and they see how my dad is in comparison to me. I mean, they love my dad. I think they do. I mean, when they saw him, they talked. My dad is very open. He listens. I think that's all grandparents. Uh, it's so funny because uh, my mom, for example, like she was really tough with me. My mom was a tough cookie. But with my kids, she's butter, man. She's so butter.
Well,
Whatever they
yeah,
want.
her responsibility is different.
So going back to what you're saying about that disconnect, I believe no matter the disconnect, it's always uh, that looking back, you know. And I think family is that look back because if they're so into the technology, once they pull some side of the technology, they're always going to go back to who they really are, their identity. Because what I believe is, as time goes by, technology is going to be more involved in the person's life. If it's not directly, it's indirectly. That's one thing that we're going to live with no matter what. Even if we simplify living with technology by hiding it, like let's say where you are, but in books, you know what I mean? But if let's say, what I mean by that is like the environments can necessarily doesn't necessarily have to be any different. It's just how the environments are connected to facilitating information and daily life and things like that. So I see them having that tool more enhanced that we can ever imagine. Um, and then it's how to differentiate from the work and reality. So I think as if we don't relate to them and they look at us as dinosaurs, then they're going to say, where does that dinosaur come from? And I believe that extra step prior to you is something that they can go deeper into who they are and might sometimes give them that balance to not be so deep into the technology and like the nature and fishing and rock climbing and things that are part of just a human, I believe, like just a regular human life without so much technology. Because technology drives what we're doing now, especially now during COVID. Technology is driving the market because if technology wasn't doing well, you would see things a lot worse, a
I like
lot
the,
worse.
I like the idea that and what I think I heard you say, or what I concluded from what you said was that no matter where in time you're a dad and you have children, no matter where you are, like, whether you were 100 years ago or whether you 100 years into the future, what I got out of it was that a a a dad that's present in a child's life helps that child. Hold on a second, there's something there. It's like the child's existence extends beyond themselves. There is a benefit to be able to exist in more than one generation. I think that's what you're pointing out, and because you see it in your ability to exist in your father's world, that's when he was a father and you were a child, and it was because he was present, and you guys had it appears to be a good relationship, and there's something beneficial to the child, to you in this case. And I think that what you and I are doing now, and I'm going to group us into same age children, is that these guys, no matter how much technology they absorb or are absorbed by, they have this one foot in the world in which they grew up with us, which we literally were very low tech,
Mm-hmm.
right? By comparison, we were cavemen.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think that there's a real benefit in people, in children, to being able to live in their present, which is going to be very different than when they were children with us. Live in their present in the future with all of the technology that exists, but yet be connected to something that may have appeared as more simple. Now, every generation is going to have increased technology, and the previous generation is always going to have less of it. But there's a what I'm saying is it's just a benefit in having access to it through your dad. That's my point. Through your dad, yeah. Because you said earlier, the reason you're a good dad is because you're of your mom. But this is what this is where we continue to fall short. This is where I think this is and this is a blanket statement, and I apologize to anyone who gets upset by it, but I think that we it's curious that it is moms who are raising good boys. It's sad that it is mothers that are raising good boys, right? I mean, sad to me is, because I see it as not. I mean, thank God for mothers, otherwise we'd be fucked, right? But it's such a missed opportunity by the men who cannot stand up, by fathers that we have had, previous fathers that cannot stand up and say, Rodrigo is a good boy because of me, because I did my job, right? Because I was present, because I taught him, right? Because I made him a good man, right? Not made him, but I helped shape and mold a good man, the good man that he is today, and the good father that he is today, and the good husband that he is today. Instead, that came from your mother. I think that's a huge missed opportunity.
Well, because I think this is why it came across that way, because I grew up with my mom. So the way it happened is, I grew up with my mom, my brother grew up with my dad. So my dad, think of my dad as like the surfer, and my mom as the realist. So when I say surfer, it's just the mentality aspect of it, per se. Not that my dad surfed, but my dad was always more the laid back. My mom was more of the go getter. So I grew up with my mom. My brother grew up with my dad. So I believe those influences also, um, were involved in some of our ambitions, per se. As me growing up, in comparison to my brother, not that my brother doesn't have ambitions. He's a psychologist, licensed, or was, whatever. He's doing his thing. So for me, it's different. I went into advertising, as you know. Been doing it for a while. But we all had our different traits. And I think that my mom gave me something that, not only she gave me, but it was my uncles, like I said. Not directly my dad, but I believe if you're surrounded by different characters of your family, I think it's an absorption. If you have that. I mean, for me, I had that. I don't know if so many people do, where I had uncles, other extended family that I looked to till this day is very close to me, especially in Brazilian culture. Family is part of everything we do besides, soccer and barbecue and drinking, things like that, and growing family. But again, for me, I was fortunate to say that, yes, my mom was very big, but not my dad. My dad was present when I let him, be present, if that makes any sense. And every time he was present, he was good. It's just that, he had his differences in comparison to mine that my brother, was good with. I guess maybe I have that trait from my mom, where I was more of a go-getter, if that's what it is.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for mothers. Of course there is. What I'm saying is that there's also a place for fathers,
Yeah, yeah,
meaning that, there's a place for mothers, because historically mothers have raised the children. But
right.
that's
Right, right,
what
but I mean,
I'm saying is
for my
mothers
dad,
have, like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we don't even need fathers, because mothers can do a good job. Look at you, right?
Right, right.
We
No,
don't
but
even need them.
again,
But what I'm saying, it's a missed opportunity. Like, where are we? Why are we not there also? Why are we not making this happen? And so here's an interesting question. How are your children going to be different than you, because you've been there this whole time?
I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, you might not, right? I have no idea. Okay, let's agree with, but something's going to be different, right? These boys were not raised by their mothers alone.
Right. No, I think that they're gonna definitely have their personalities, hands
Well, no,
down.
not, but like how are they going to be different than us? See, you see, that's the thing. Hold on. So this is an interesting question. We don't have an answer for it, but we're gonna get an answer. We're gonna get an answer. Like 20, 30 years from now, we're gonna get an answer. How are our boys, your boys, my boys, different than us because we raised them?
Hmm.
I mean, by the way, I'm assuming that you're raising your boys because of all the
Yeah,
pictures I see, right? I
yeah,
don't
of
know. I
course.
don't know if you're only taking pictures from time to time
Yeah,
and you're letting your
no,
wife still do all the work.
no, no, no. As a matter of fact, they did. Well, my little man almost walked in because he was out biking with his friends, and he just came home. And
So,
my
so
oldest is working.
that's it. You know, this is a for me. This is a fascinating question, right?
Hmm.
And it's not just us too. I live in a town where I'm part of a group of fathers that are, I mean, the vast majority of the people who I yeah well yeah that I what who the that's that I know of, first marriages, they're still there, they're present. I see them, coaching, they're present. These are present dads, right?
Right, right, right.
um and this is going to be very interesting. It's going to, for me, it's like it's a beautiful experiment. I'm going to find out 40 years from now what happened with these men, all these boys, right? All these
Yeah.
little kids that that I've known since they were tiny. And what's going to, how different are these guys going to be than us?
It's funny you say that because how do you measure the difference? That's a question that I always say. What is that difference? Is it because they observe you and want to be better than you, or if they observe you and they want to be different than you? For me, uh, I looked at it just a different way than my dad. Not that it's not a, it wouldn't be a bad thing to be him. It's just a different mindset. I believe my brother lives that way. You know, for me, it's different. What I believe is if you teach them being present and you teach them the foundations of being a good person, no matter what they are and where they're from, and making sure that they look at people for character. And I hope that that's instills, because the question that you're saying, you're asking is it's also a very interesting one because what would be the difference, right? And I don't know how to answer that, but I always assume that if you did a good job, it wouldn't fall too far from the tree, you know, if that makes any sense. Like, uh, birds are a feather. Was this there's another saying is apple doesn't fall too far from the
Well,
nest.
so there are, I mean, like there's going to be obvious differences, right? If you are a child who grew up with a single parent, and that single parent had at least one job, that child is going to grow up in a fairly stressful environment, right? In your
Mhm,
case, right, you're a child or two. Now they have their friends growing up in a two-parent home, right? That's going to be a lot less stress on the children, right? So their
mhm,
their world is going to look different because they don't have that stress, right?
mhm,
That falls on, that weighs heavy on children of single parents, right?
mhm.
So that, for instance, right, that's one. Two, in your case or in our case, we have children that are exposed to two different ideas at home,
Yeah.
right? Mom speaks, dad speaks, two
Yes.
different ideas. So the child is already
Yes.
immediately exposed to twice as much information potentially,
Mhm.
right? Assuming that the dad, like us, is engaged verbally,
Yes.
emotionally and physically, right?
Yeah.
So there's all of that. Now there's also, a mom that gets a break when dad takes both kids, deep sea fishing for the entire day. Mom gets some rest when dad comes home, and mom is rested. She's nicer to everybody,
Yeah.
naturally, right? And she wants to love everybody because she's missed them for a whole day, right? So now mom is nicer, the children. So there was this experiment done with with mice or rats, I forget. And it was about the amount of time that a mother rat spent licking the pups, and it just showed, and I forget the exact experiment, but in essence, it less it the more attention that a mother paid to the pups, and or licked them, etc., the less stress that the pup was exposed to in general, right? And of course, the experiment was fairly stressful already for all for the entire family, right?
Hmm.
So, but the issue with stress is that it's it causes inflammation, right? It's
Hmm.
stress is bad, anxiety is
Right.
bad,
Right.
it's bad for your health.
Hmm.
So one way is we're going to find out in and I don't know what's going to happen. No, we don't know. I mean, we could sort of, I mean, I suppose we could theorize, and I certainly haven't read anything on this, but the way that these guys are growing up. Oh, here's another one: a childhood. Right, my boys not only have had a childhood, but at 12 and 13, they're still children, thanks to me, and I'm okay with that. I want them to be children. They're going to be old. They're going to be older.
Oh, it's gonna go
It's
quick.
it's gonna, yeah. They're
It's
going
gonna
to,
be out the door before you know it.
but they have had a childhood, right? If you
Right.
remember when you were growing up in the ghetto, right? And like this is horrendous and stressful, and I'm not really
Yeah. So no, I give you that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and tell you that. Um, um, when you grow up in the hood, I don't like to say ghetto. I like to say hood.
yeah, it's a
The
bad
hood
word.
life.
Sorry, it's what came to mind.
Oh, ghetto. Okay, but I mean, ghetto is different. I think hood is more character, if that makes any sense. I grew in a
It
section
was
of
a
town.
it was an urban tough environment. Let's call it that.
Yeah, yeah, it was very
Right?
tough.
And you had to fend for yourself.
Yeah, I
Maybe
had
you
to
got
fend for
home.
myself. Oh, I had a little brother. We were Brazilian in a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood, and little kids, when they don't know, they don't understand. Um, they're curious. Kids are tough on kids.
Yeah,
So the way I learned it is you had to stand your ground,
right.
and I think that was I. It's so funny because I think my kids do that, but I believe it's a little different. I know. You know what? It's very similar because when I was growing up, I was very fortunate that I've met so many different cultures and types of families and all different walks of life, and I'm so grateful for that. That I was able to meet, you name it, almost all different types of culture. And growing up, I had a mix of friends from all different parts of the world, because where I grew up, it was more of a resort area at the time. It was like before, traveling to the Bahamas and stuff like that, the Catskill Mountains, all the Borscht Belt, the hotels, and I grew up around that. So you had all these different cultures that would come up there from all walks of life, which I think influenced me. So when I came to the story, I saw that mix.
Mm.
And I noticed that with them, it's very similar. They embrace culture just as much as I do.
Yeah, but they don't embrace it on their own. See, Rod. Here's the thing: they embrace it because you embrace it. They normalize it because you normalized it for them.
Mhm.
If you were somebody who said, "Oh man, here comes these people from this other place, or these people from this other," then your kids would be the same way. Of course, it's
Yeah.
so they children learn their view, the children's view of the world must be your view of the world. It would be very unsafe for a child to attempt to become something other than what his caregivers are. Extremely unsafe. It just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
When you talk about the apple falling far from the tree, it we're talking about your kids have to be like you. They have because children don't have a filter against you. They
Mhm.
have to assume that what you're saying and doing is the way to say and do things. They have to. It
Yeah.
would be foolish. They would like literally not, like they wouldn't make it If they went
Yeah.
against us, they wouldn't make it. So it's good that they don't have that filter. The danger is that we can pump them with all kinds of hatred and horrendous stuff without them knowing that it's bad. So that's sort of the downside to that. But
Yeah.
the
That's
reason
the
your
good
kids
thing.
love the city and all of their friends are from from 190 different worlds, I mean countries, is because that's how you see it. You look at these kids from from wherever, and you go awesome, and they go awesome. Of course, it makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's you.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
love it because of you.
True. I believe that. You're right. I think so. I just want them to
It's not a gene.
value it. It's not a gene, right?
No,
No.
no, it's
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah, I believe that too. I think it also has to do with their mom. I guess she was very open to everything, thank God. She, in the beginning, she was like, oh, maybe we should. No, not really. No, we were never the suburban type to go to the suburbs. It was never that. Not that we didn't think it could be better. We didn't think that. It's just her mindset was. I guess it was just me because I told her that it would be nice if they lived in culture. It would be nice if they knew the difference, you know. And because of what I do, and you got to be close to New York, or what I do, um, I, it kind of said we kind of said, okay, let's see where this goes, and hopefully it's going to go in the right direction. If that makes any sense, I think that's what it was. Going back to the all the way to the beginning, in a sense, to roundabout to where we are now. Um, it's definitely a trip that you don't know where you're going, and you're definitely trying your best. But it is very important to be present, and I think if if you learn from mistakes, then if you're a good person or a good parent, if you want to try to be a good parent, you're going to definitely learn from your surroundings and try to apply the best you can. But there's no manual to it. I'm not going to say that and it changes definitely from my experience. Like my children when they were small in comparison to now, I can show you videos of characters of when they were little in comparison to now. You will see some similarities, but it has nothing to do with what they are now. And I think that's what the for a boy, I don't know, for a girl, it's a two-step psychology aspect of it. It's how they were raised, and like you said, with a childhood, and then from there they should take that with them into a better place, wherever that place is. And then from experiences that I see, it's like trying to bring it back, because once they get to be older, I moved out of my house when I was 18, and I can tell you that my kids, they're going to probably do the same thing, and I'm going to try to hold on to them as much as I can, or guide them to go to colleges. That's what I'm doing right now. Like Gabriel's applying to all these colleges, you know, wherever he wants to go. What he wants to do. He wants to go into international business analytics right now, because you want to guide them and make sure that's what they want to do. But I want to be that support. And Felipe, he's a sophomore in high school. He's just trying his best. But it definitely changes. Like you with your boys. Oh man, you're right on the cusp right now, man. Right on the cusp. Once it gets 114, 15, 16, you're gonna you probably see it already. Yeah.
No, no, no. I haven't really noticed. But, um, you've mentioned a couple of times this idea about there not being a manual, but in this second time that you said it, um, you know, what you said this time was you don't know where you're going,
Yeah.
and that, you know, going back to some of the earlier questions, I think that I think that one of the differences between you and your boys at your at the at you know when they are finally ready to get married and have children, one of the biggest differences is going to be one of the biggest differences is going to be that they're going to know a lot more than we did
Yeah.
because no, but wait, hold on. About this that you're saying you don't really know where you're going. You didn't know where you were going. I didn't know where I was going. We were winging it
Yeah.
because we didn't have a model.
No.
You see, this is going to be a big difference, right? It doesn't mean that their life is going to be better or different. I don't know how it's going to be, not better or worse, just different. But there's going to be some not subtle differences. There's going to be some really uniquely intelligent differences. Because think about it, you and your wife have modeled what life will look like, meaning they don't have to think about where they're going. They're just following the template. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be one of the biggest differences between them and us. They're
Mm-hmm.
following a template.
Mm-hmm.
Looking, if your wife is as nice as you, I'm
Oh,
assuming that she's nice to
a
your
lot
kids.
nicer than me.
Assuming
A
that
lot nicer.
she's nice to your kids, they're going to want a woman like that. So there's
Yeah.
the template is, cool like dad with a wife like mom. That's the template, and that's a big difference, brother. I mean, their lives are going to be completely different, and this is why I think it's so important for men to start talking about fatherhood and engaging and seeing what they're doing, right? Like all of these dads in my town that I was talking about earlier, all of these children are going to be like the ones that we're talking about, like our kids, following that template. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, there's a good relationship at home between mom and dad.
Right.
Because
Right.
so you're saying there's no manual. Well, actually, there is. There can be a manual. It's more of a template than a manual itself. But if, for instance, imagine that your kids are not going to have to be like, I don't know what it's like to be a dad. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to have, a good woman. Like that's us. That was us. We're like, we're winging it. We really don't know where we're going.
We know.
Yeah, but our kids know that it exists. They grew
Mm-hmm.
up in it. For them, there's no question about it. They don't question whether they're going to have an amazing marriage, right? With
Mm-hmm.
amazing kids. They don't question it. All they're doing is the only thing they know how to do, what we showed them, which was pretty off the hook. Yeah, yeah.
But hopefully, that's one thing that is that even it being where you're trying to guide them in the right direction, that it's the right direction. You never want to. It's so funny you bring that up because you never know. I'm not trying to force them in one specific way, but I try to teach them fundamentals. And one thing that it's very important out of all this, and I want to bring it back because I know we spoke about what they learn and the technology aspect of all their surroundings and so forth. I personally surrounded them with technology at a young age for a reason, because I knew that they had to know the difference from being the end user and the tool maker. And it's important. I think that's another thing. As a parent, as a father, I want to say, um, well, your children, no matter boy, girl, you have to, if you're, and that could be mother and son. My mom taught me that working, you're getting money for what you do. Always try to, give your self-worth. So you are your own service. That type of stuff. I also implement in them. But at the same time, it's where they apply that. Where do you apply that intelligence that you learned? Don't just apply it not necessarily to the things that you love to do all the time. Apply it to things that it's going to be a tool for you to use to get to the things that you love all the time. And that's technology. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with one of the biggest technology companies in the world. And so they were exposed to that. They saw it. And I use that technology to show them, how it was. When I worked at IBM, I was very fortunate that I was able to work with Watson in its stages of release, where I even use essays from my son, and it was so smart. It told me kind of what they wanted to do in the future. But The point is I showed them that's a tool. You want to build the tools for those instead of being always the end user. You have to see the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's their education part of it, because there's going to be so deep into technology. They have to see the difference of being an end user and a tool maker. And so that's why I believe, for my son, for an example, my oldest wants to go into international business, international trade, economics, and business analytics, and so forth, because the data processing and the tools that you need to build more advanced technology, you're going to need to crunch data or know how to guide data at a more different level that we can't even understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important. And then for my little man, he wants to be an astrologist because he thinks that space travel is going to be extremely important.
Astronomer.
Yeah, astronomer.
Yeah.
Because he believes that we need to measure space for travel, and that's going to come because they're seeing it different, because they know that technology is a part of their life, and they have to see the perspective, like you kind of mentioned. It's like going back in perspective, seeing grandparents, and like what we were talking about, how I relate to them. And I think because they're so deep into technology, they kind of pull back away. What I'm trying to teach them is to pull away from it and see it from a different angle, you know in life and everything you do, see it from a different angle. Sometimes you have to. And I think it's important for them. I mean, if I had daughters, I would, teach my daughter. But I have two boys, and hopefully, if they have daughters, they'll teach that to their daughters, you know,
Mm.
or their sons, and whatever, or people, whoever. I think it's important that they see the difference, because and I think that perspective comes in if you learn culture. And so those are the kind of two base elements that I use for my kids when I teach, when I try to be a parent. So it's surrounding them around things that they know they can relate to very differently. And number two is look at things differently. And number three is don't be afraid to go after the things that you want, even if it's a little difficult. If you work hard and you try your best, in time, what is impossible becomes possible. That's
Mm.
almost like a slogan.
That reminds me of this is an interesting point, an interesting moment during this conversation to remind a dad to a young child, right, a toddler, or
Mm-hmm.
really a little, when at the age when they're still just sitting on the living room floor,
Mm-hmm.
stacking blocks, right? That age, whatever that is, 1, 2, 3 years old.
Legos too.
The what's important there for a dad is to, because you just said it, but it's important that we recognize when this begins. You just said, teach him that some things take time to build, and some things take multiple attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the keys to fatherhood, one of the keys, which is this is what's been written about a million times, is that what fathers most contribute to their children is comes in the way of playtime, right? Playtime. So, and you're talking about now, in their teens, but I'm sure that you've been doing it since they were sitting, since you all three were sitting in the living room floor attempting to build something. And the
Yes.
key at that moment is, and this is the key at that moment is for a father to encourage their child to try again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to help the child recognize that it's okay to have not succeeded, because it's not necessarily a failure, because it's a lesson. And now now you're gonna, the second or third time, you're gonna be able to get it done, because the previous
Mm-hmm.
times you were not. So they were
Mm-hmm.
not failures, they were just lessons. So I think something important to learn for men is make sure to not complete the job for the child without and take away the opportunity for them to learn that
Mm-hmm.
some things you don't succeed on the first time,
Yeah,
right?
very important.
Because
Yeah.
that's when that has to happen, not now at 15, not now at 17. It needs to have happened way before,
Mm-hmm.
when they were little. And I think that that's many of us fathers struggle when it's most important, because they're so little and we look at them and they go, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand anything. But they understand a lot more than we think, because we know this is that those, when you're 1, 2, 3, those are the building blocks of who you later become. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually the most important time. The most important time in a child's life is when they are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and later they're like, they just need you less and less because you gave them such a strong foundation. So if I could wish something right now, is for dads, if dads only ever wanted to be a part of their children's lives, only part of their, like in a certain time, a period of time in their lives, it should
Mm-hmm.
be like 0 to 6, 0 to 8. That's it. You want to go. But that would be like, right, but that would be like, you would have done the most, the greatest work, right. Your Sistine Chapel and your Mona Lisa would have been done right there in those, if you could have been completely fully engaged during that period. It's like the most important
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, for me in those times, I was pretty much, for a good 3, 5 years, I was raised, by my mom by herself. But like I said, I had my friends, but I would see my dad, when I would go to Brazil, and my dad, I would stay with my dad all the time. Um, uh, yeah, man. For me, also going back to what you were saying, is for really it's really teaching them patience, because I believe they're so surrounded by this stream culture that it's just so rapid, so on demand, that they just it's just they should have that. They feel that they're um, um, I don't want to say that they're privileged, that they should just have it. I think it's because it's so abundant.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that it's just not that hard to get, but in actuality, you don't want to tell them it's not hard. In actuality, you want to tell them you have to be patient. You know, I feel that that's important, because of where they live and how they live in society today, with all this information that they have on their hands. Like you said, in the palm of their hands, they can see the world whatever way they want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so patience is very important. That's why, like, fishing, I think, is was very important to them, because in the beginning, I could tell you, they wanted to catch a fish every second, every minute. And then after a while, they realize that you need to be patient. It's not that you're going to catch a fish all the time, uh, but when you catch it, if you do it correctly, you're going to have a big payout.
Yeah.
And so I think fishing was that, for me, I guess, to show them that, because what else is there, besides the time, number one, that you need to spend with them? Because a lot of times, I think you remember too, um, in advertising, you work a lot. So you had to somehow make that balance. If you didn't have it during the week, you would have to make it during the weekend for sure, right? Or let's say, early in the morning, which was my thing with my kids, is breakfast. Breakfast is very important in my family. Still is till this day. But again, we're trying to get in shape now, or at least I am, and my little man was doing the same thing, and my wife. My oldest, he has that skinny gene, and my brother has a skinny gene. Um, so you know, um, it's about learning patience, I think, and time to do things that you want to do with your family. Um, I think you know, that's where I see it. You teach them patience and value time, and I think they can do anything they want. Um,
I don't know if I teach patience. I mean, maybe by example, but I don't know that I'm a high. I don't know that I'm. No, I don't think I teach patience. I think I'm a pretty impatient guy.
Well, I think
I
people are
don't.
impatient, but if you teach them that you need to be patient,
I don't know.
it's kind of something you learn. And I think fishing does that because you have to be. It's like you can't. Hey, fish! By the way, get on my hook. You
Chop
know,
chop.
you know what I mean? It's like you have to wait and see,
Yeah.
and you could wait all day and not catch anything.
Oh man, we do that. That's the worst.
Exactly. So I think if you teach them patience and the value of time, it's a balance. Because like for an example, they sit there all day and then they realize, you know what, maybe I need worms, or maybe I need a different bait, or maybe I need a different pole, and
Yeah.
then they go after it, and so they don't wait for it. They go after it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I taught them. As a fishing as an example. Not that we didn't do sports, that they didn't play basketball, or we don't play baseball, or I mean, I don't we don't play baseball recent, but my kids love to play basketball all the time. We're very big into sports, very big in going places together and so forth when we can.
Well, so wait, hold on. But did you actually teach them patience, or are you saying that
I try.
they learned it
I try.
because they had no choice?
No, I think it was trying to teach them patience. I believe my kids are patient. I believe so. I don't know if they're going to hold on to that for the rest of their life. I believe they have to be patient, and especially if you're in a relationship,
Uh,
patience is something extremely important. I think they learn that
Yeah.
through me and my wife, and just in everything that you do. Like you said, I'm trying to teach them that it's not they're going to win the first time, but be patient enough, and most likely, if you keep doing it, you're going to win, right? I believe that because if you just give up, I'm like, you know what, this is not working. I want to do something else. That attitude is not going to get you anywhere. Maybe get you somewhere else different, but
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean if you don't stick around and try to figure out or had the time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I never thought about teaching patience. Yeah, it never even crossed my mind. It's such a thing that I never considered. Hmm.
I mean, I guess it's part of life. If patience, for example, is listening, I tell them listen as much as you can, really observe as much as you can, and then of course make your judgments by what you learn. um, Try to be patient with people. I believe as people get older, you become different, and I think I tell them all the time, like, be patient with other people, be patient with those that don't have the same mindset as you.
Hmm.
um, of course, stand your ground
Hmm.
and believe in your beliefs, but patience is extremely important, especially in these times. God, there's so much shit, right? Sorry, pardon for the curse, but it's just so many things happening at once.
It's all happening. Everything is happening at the same time.
Literally,
Everything is happening at the same time these days. It's unbelievable.
yeah. So you got to teach them patience to get through it and not to get too wound up on a
It
lot of things.
you made me you got me started on that thought. Um, you could literally right now do anything. If you have if almost you don't even have to be a millionaire. You just if you just have a tiny little bit of spending money, you could right now do anything that you want. Anything you can possibly imagine, you could do it this instant. That's the world that we live in. This instant, you could fly anywhere and do anything, go anywhere, do anything, find people. Oh, by the way, you could find a group of people that also want to do that one thing. It's like it's all happening right now. I mean, like never before.
Yeah, I agree. I
Remarkable.
believe it. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity, and you just think about it now. Like, I was watching this thing today with Nokia. Nokia is working with NASA to put 4G on the moon so that the space station or astronauts, when they're in that orbit area, that they can broadcast signals back to the Earth. without having to deal with an extra satellite or all the support, all these support uh, robots and rovers and so forth. I mean, it's just changing. Life is changing very quickly right now because the situation that we're in. It's also changing our children. For example, our children are probably going through something that most likely won't happen for another 100 to 200 years, just because of the experience that they went through today. I mean, in this time, like 2020. So
You mean the COVID?
COVID, how to go to school from home and with the
Oh yeah.
technology, um, um, how to. I mean, I think we're fortunate in comparison to some right now because things are getting really bad in other places.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, not to shake the camera, knock on wood, that our children are, I think, in a pretty stable area of the United States, that we went through that hurdle, and we're trying to control that. And they're going to school. I'm working from home. I mean, granted, I go to work too, but the point is for them, where they're so used to seeing their friends going out with their friends, being in class, uh, um, having that interaction with their friends. Now it's very impersonal, and it's going to be part of their life most likely to be
Oh
in
yeah.
person. Whereas you and I know we chat on social, or texting, what have you. But I'm more of a guy that be calling, what's up, man? My kids won't answer a phone call if they're face to face. You know what I mean?
If it's just a call, if it's not a video call.
No, if they did, I mean, they'll answer mine because I'm their dad. But
Yeah.
if their friends call, they usually be like, "Why didn't you text me first?" You know what I mean? That's the culture that they're in. So again, going back to the whole um, grandparents and fishing, patience.
You said something that maybe we can finish with. You mentioned you said the word insecurity, and I'm wondering if you know,
Insecurity. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. But what was in the context? In the context that I said it, you.
it might have been. It might have. What it made me think of was this idea that when when we're teaching, I don't know, when we're teaching, when you in general, right? When we're teaching, what are they? Not values, but what are some of the what's the word?
Ambitions?
Huh?
Ambitions?
No, not ambitions, but when so there are um let's call them ideas or ideals, right?
Ideals, okay.
And we within those ideals might be strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or power of knowledge, or right. But I and we seem to focus on maybe the stronger, right? The more the ones that we consider to be most valuable. But but the one that I think that we may not teach often is or model, not so much teach, but model insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
because they're normal, right? So it's interesting because I think very often we don't model um 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 the we might not be modeling the downs, right? Like it's we don't normalize being sad. We don't normalize being insecure,
Mm-hmm.
right? We
Mm-hmm.
don't normalize, having an angry moment, and being able to get out of it. Um, we don't normalize, you know, um, how failures are opportunities at learning, right? Like, so there's a lot of like there's like this, all of the positives that we want to teach them, but there's a lot of the negatives that we don't teach them because we're almost afraid of them, because we want you to succeed and be great and be wonderful and be strong and be tough and be
Right.
good looking and be amazing and we don't we leave the entire um opposite side of the spectrum. Like we don't tackle it, we don't look at it, we don't approach it. No insecurities, no weaknesses, right? Like we don't. It's interesting because like you made me think of this, and I know that I haven't done it. I haven't normalized so much. It's also necessary
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with not succeeding the first time. To be okay with saying I don't know the answer to that question, and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is the conversation I have not had before, where it's just coming to me now that wait a minute, I need to introduce this other part of the foundation of who we are, right? We're not always great, we're not always wonderful, we're not always happy, right? We want our children to always be happy. That's ridiculous.
Right.
No one is ever always happy. So how is it that we always want our kids to be happy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Meaning that if your child is sad, you don't go, yeah, go ahead, be sad. No. I mean, you go down to their level, you empathize, you go, it's okay to be sad. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do anything to make you happy again? But it's okay to be sad, right? There's a lot of it's okay too that we're not teaching. I mean, I
Right.
think so. I think that we're not. And so that's going to be a blanket statement that it's a huge assumption. I know that I haven't done it, but I think you might agree that maybe you're not doing it either, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not spending time on those very normal parts of life.
Well, I mean, it's not directly. I wouldn't say that. I think that um, going back to patience, I think um, going back to that as talking about it doesn't come with a manual. So if you simplify it, so if let's say if there are insecurities, let's say if there is a sad moment, you want to keep it upbeat, but you know that those sad moments are always going to come. So that maybe your presence will alleviate some of those stressful moments, and they come back to you, and they talk to you about it, and they're open, they're comfortable enough to talk about it. So that's why patience, I think, is something extremely important, not only to teach them, but to myself, right? To us as parents, we have to be patient because you know what? Um, they're gonna sometimes come back with some things, and you're gonna have to be patient enough to kind of see their perspectives and be a parent and say, oh, okay, so this is my parent card that I have to pull out now and make the right decision not only for me but for them, and also um, see where they're going, and know from my experience to say, okay, let me be that positive during the rough times, that they can come back and alleviate some of that, and me being patient even if like it was a stupid mistake,
Hmm.
and be like, you know what, brush yourself off and get up and just do it again, or don't do it again, learn from your mistakes and be a better person by it.
Mm-hmm.
um, so you know what I mean, because you can't really go specific by insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Can't. I mean, everybody's so different. I think insecurity is like kind of a name or a word that speaks to every different human on the planet, no matter who you are. I think everybody has some sort of insecurity. It's just human nature to have it. But insecurities also lead to certain things that happen, like certain events in your life that bring
Wait,
that
there it is.
feeling.
But hold on, there. So yeah, is you can teach that it's okay to have insecurities. We can teach that, but no one. I don't think anyone does. I don't think there's a dad or mom alive. I mean, saying, what, it's okay to be insecure from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just don't do that, but we should,
Mm.
because it's real. It's like saying it's okay to be sad from time to time.
Yeah,
It's okay to, right? It's okay to feel bad from time to
right.
time. It's like, right? We have to
But
allow ourselves that.
true. But then in that aspect of it, it's okay to be. And so if they come, or if you're present, or even if it was a mistake that you told them not to do. I don't know. I'm trying to put it in context. And they do it. And it was what you said. You still have to be patient. You can't be like, yes, you see, I told you. It's like, see, yeah, if these things happen. Like I said, if you learn from it, you're going to be a better person. And being there and being that voice that they go, okay, you know what? My dad was right, but that doesn't mean they're going to not feel that same thing again, or do
Right.
it again. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but giving giving them saying it is an opportunity at providing them with the vocabulary, right?
But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But the recovery, but see, it's a very fine line with those insecurities, I believe, because you don't want to intrude that too much to where they're like, okay, you know what? He has no idea who I am, and they just back away and they just have their own circle or people that they go to. You always want to be that one. I think this is how I do it. I'm not perfect of having them say, you know what? It's my dad. I'll just, what is he gonna do? He's going to yell at me. He's going to be upset, or they're going to be like, he's going to support me. He's going to say the things that I need to hear, or it's just somebody to sit there and be like, yeah, you know, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on, and you sit there and listen and and be patient. Going back to patience. And so if they're doing that with me, most likely they're going to give that to whatever else their kids, and have that perspective, almost like you said, uh, like a template, but not. I mean, it's because you kind of try to like you try to work them in a direction, and that's like almost like a template that they see, how things should be because they relate to that, and that's what they want to look for. But it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? It could be whatever they want, as long as they understand what they're doing and how they're going about getting it, and patience, and keep trying, and what have you. It's just trying to do the best you can with what you have.
brother, I think that's it for us, man.
Yeah, man, it was a good talk. It was fun. In the beginning, I must tell you that I was a little tired and I was overwhelmed with a couple of things, and so when you're like, yeah, man, you need an espresso shot, I was like, I'm not lying to you, dude. I have a bunch of them in my fridge. So, yeah, man.
All
So this
right.
is great, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
invite. It was really fun. I'm sorry that my lighting wasn't as cool as yours. And, I didn't get a haircut, but, I haven't been on camera in a while. I usually don't do this ever.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was good.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.
I'll see you around.
Take care, man. Thanks again.